Welcome to the On Your Mind podcast, where we believe mental illness can be temporary and transformative. Stay tuned for innovative, effective tools from experts in the field of mental health. Hosted by Timothy J. Hayes, psychologist. This podcast aims to change the narrative around mental illness. Move from a place of fear to a place of hope and solutions. Here on Your Mind.
Alex Doman is an entrepreneur, best-selling author, music producer, podcast host, and TEDx speaker with 25 years' experience in neurotechnology. The third generation in a family of pioneers dedicated to improving brain performance, Alex is founder and chief product officer of Vital Neuro, founder of Advanced Brain Technologies and Sleep Genius. Alex's best-selling book, Healing at the Speed of Sound, is published in 5 languages. He's contributed articles to peer-reviewed scientific journals, magazines, and books, and is the host of the Advanced Brain podcast. Doman's production credits are extensive, guiding teams who've created cutting-edge solutions that have helped millions of people worldwide, including the Listening Program, a music listening therapy and audio streaming service, and Sleep Genius, which is trademarked. An audio-based sleep aid built from NASA research, which achieved the #1 global health and fitness app in the App Store. His focus is now on launching Vital's Leonardo, a mobile cloud-based neuroscience platform for brain wellness, to help the masses manage their stress and mental health. He has been interviewed by NBC, CBS, ABC, MSNBC, Today, NPR Marketplace, Wall Street Journal, Self, Women's Health, Men's Health, Fast Company, Money Watch, ESPN Radio, and more. A global keynote speaker, Alex has been on stages in Europe, Asia, Australia, North and South America, and was recognized as one of the 50 most important human behavior experts to watch. Stick around after the interview for my final thoughts. This talk is going to be packed with good information. Welcome to the On Your Mind podcast.
Thank you, Timothy.
Well, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the healing at the speed of sound.
Right. So, Timothy, I'm third generation in a family that has been in the field of neurorehabilitation and development of neurotechnology programs and child development methodologies to help people achieve their greatest potential. So this work started with my grandfather, who was a doctor of physical medicine rehabilitation, who helped pioneer treatments for brain injury recovery, starting back in the 1940s. And the tradition of that work carried through with my father, Robert Doman Jr., the National Academy for Child Development, where I started working over 25 years ago, researching sound and music modalities to help improve brain performance. And then coming out of that in 1998, I started an organization called Advanced Brain Technologies to bring evidence scientifically based music programs to the world to help a whole range of neurological disorders, but also to enhance and optimize performance across the lifespan. And that work has moved into my current work with Vital Neuro, a startup that I have with colleagues that's working to reduce mental health issues across the planet with innovative neurotechnologies as well. So I was raised in the brain business, always had a love for sound and music and its applications in improving people's lives and mental well-being. And here I am today, 25 years into a career.
Wonderful. And you mentioned Vital Neuro.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more specifically about that, because that's the one you mentioned directly in connection with mental health issues.
It is. So Vital Neuro is a company I co-founded with a very dear friend and colleague, Dr. Cameron Fallapur, who's a clinical psychologist and neuroscientist. And what we did is we took the work we've been doing in advanced brain technologies for over 20 years, blended with his psychology and neuromodulation practice in New York to really address this global massive epidemic of mental health problems. And where we're starting is at the foundation of where we see a lot of mental health challenges, and that's the ability to regulate stress and to build stress resilience. We find when stress levels are high in individuals that the symptomology of their mental health issues are exacerbated. And when we can help people shift out of a fight and flight response in their sympathetic nervous system and help them cross over and live more in the parasympathetic system, where they can recover and then reach a state of homeostasis, that we see very dramatic improvements in mental health issues, reduction in stress, as well as burnout across the population.
So is that movement from the fight or flight area into the rest and restore area, are you facilitating that with sound?
So we're facilitating that with a combination of modalities. So we start with scientifically designed music that's actually been proven in clinical trials to reduce stress, depression, burnout, and anxiety. And that music is listened to through wireless headphones for 15-minute daily sessions. During that 15-minute session, at the first minute, using our wireless, what are called the Vital One smart headphones, the headphones have embedded EEG sensors that are dry electrodes that are reading brain activity in real time. So we take a 1-minute baseline of brain activity looking at known stress markers in the brain. We get a baseline for that individual, and then a training session begins combining the scientifically designed music with an advanced form of neurofeedback training. And that neurofeedback training is providing feedback to the brain about its stress level and helping it self-regulate. So what's happening is in that 15 minutes, the music is designed to entrain your brain to a more relaxed state, shifting from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system. And then as the brain gets more successful at doing that, a personalized reward sound is added to the music, which tells the brain that it's actually getting into the correct state of recovery. So the more that it does that, the more it's conditioned to do so through a method called operant conditioning, and it gets better at it over time. So every time the brain relaxes, it gets rewarded with a feedback sound. There's a dopamine response, which has the brain feel good, gives it a signal that it's doing the right thing, and it continues to do that over the 15-minute session. So the Vital Neurotechnology is adapting to your brain activity and changing the music in real time to help you get more successful at stress reduction. Then as we do this daily, the brain gets better with it over practice, then can access this state of homeostasis with automaticity, which is what we're designed to do. But in today's society, we have so many stressors and so many things coming at us that many of us are living in a heightened state of stress and aren't even consciously aware of it. But we're seeing it through mental health symptoms and issues with obesity, issues with fatigue levels, challenges with emotional regulation that people have, inattention and focus, sleep issues. I mean, I can go on and on, but you clearly know the impact of stress on our mental and our physical health.
So when you're talking about this system, and it's Vital Neuro, VITALNEURO.
Correct.
It sounds as though it's, and you mentioned, kind of the EEG neurofeedback. It sounds like the systems I've heard of and seen where there's a visual stimulation and the visual and the audio change as the brainwave entrains to the right level. But what you're talking about is just the auditory with the EEG feedback. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is also a combination of visual feedback, but the real dynamic shift in the vital neurotechnology is actually the what's currently under a patent review is the sound-based algorithms that are providing that feedback reward sound based on your personal brain signature in real time. So there's also a visual component of feedback that's happening that lets you know if you're in or out of relaxation response. But for the stress reduction and relaxation protocol portion of Vital Neuro, that's primarily a closed eye session. So your eyes are closed during the session. So we're relying on that audio feedback reward system. People can look at the visual reward for reference to begin to correlate the visual and auditory feedback timing, which is helpful when you begin training. But then we move to audio only in a closed eye protocol for stress reduction and relaxation. There are also protocols for calm focus, which are eyes open, that are combining auditory and visual, but have a little more visual orientation, as well as optimal performance protocols that have the same auditory and visual feedback design.
Okay, so this is an excellent start. You know, as you mentioned, in my practice, I have a tremendous amount of time in the startup trying to get people out of their agitated state. They come in with a problem and they're all nervous about talking to a professional. Where does it go from there after you've built this facility for the individual to move out of that stress mode or fight or flight into a more relaxed, rehabilitating mode? Then what?
Well, you know, what we're doing, and we know the movement around meditation, right? Meditation has been around for eons, and yet now it's pervasive in popular culture. And the question about that is why? And the why is meditation allows us to access different states of internal reflection and external access. And it helps improve the dialogue from the internal self to the external world. So Vital Neuro is facilitating a neuro-guided meditation process that allows us to more readily access those states. So when you ask about the what's next, that becomes a daily practice that we continue with and becomes part of the lifestyle choices. Once we've developed that practice, we've begun to shift our nervous system to where we're accessible and receptive. A whole world of opportunity begins to open up. Then we can layer in other processes and other modalities that we're now more receptive to because we're in a completely different emotional, mental, and physiological state. Much like what we're beginning to explore with the Optimal Being program, where we have participants that are doing Vital Neuro as well as other music-based modalities from Advanced Brain Technologies called the Listening Program. Before Optimal Being sessions, we're priming the brain and the nervous system to open up its receptivity to then new material and content and context that we may be experiencing.
So you mentioned the listening program as separate from Vital Neuro. Can you help me understand the difference?
Absolutely, Timothy. The listening program is part of what is the foundational science behind Vital Neuro. It's a music-based listening therapy method, also evidence-based, backed by numerous independent research studies, that trains the brain through very specifically sound frequency structured music programs listened to through headphones. And that's also a daily practice, 15 to 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And it's designed also to help our fight or flight response to reduce that, help us go into homeostasis, and provide a foundation for more receptive learning, emotional integration, mental health. That program was initially developed really focused on a neurodiverse population of children with pediatric special needs, and a range from autism to ADHD, brain injury recovery, stress and anxiety disorders, to helping veterans with PTSD, and even working with athletes and other individuals, again, across the age spectrum and across the current level of functionality from severely impaired to very peak performance states. So that program over 21 years has been refined through a network of over 9,000 practitioners that apply it worldwide, used in all kinds of use cases to really change the plasticity of the brain, to change the interconnections, to improve the functionality and the synchrony of brain performance to allow us to more optimally perform in all areas of our life. And the research behind the listening program served as a foundation for what we're doing in Vital Neuro, but is available independent of the Vital Neurotechnology through Advanced Brain Technologies.
So to access the listening program, what kind of equipment does one need?
Yeah, so the listening program, there are a couple of options. So it's a practitioner-guided protocol. So you work with a certified listening program provider who's gone through extensive training to guide and coach people through the methodology. That training is a minimum of 12 hours per practitioner. And then there are two options for how you access the technology. You can either have a preloaded digital media player that has a personalized library of music programming on it, or you can subscribe to the listening program online platform, and with a monthly subscription, you can have a personalized program designed by that system online, and then either system is overseen by the trained practitioner, and then you use a pair of approved headphones in combination with that music as you proceed through the protocols.
And so the idea with the taking it to the next level, it seemed as when you were talking about the Vital Neuro program, that has a different kind of equipment that actually reads the brain signals and gives feedback. Is that correct?
That's right. So that's the added element. And, you know, Timothy, we've visioned this actually since 2000. And knowing that if we can get real-time neurophysiological information that is then guiding the music protocols, that we would take their efficacy to the next level. So Vital Neuro is really the realization of that vision that we had 20 years ago to take this technology to this point. Doesn't make the listening program less relevant, but when we add the Vital Neuro component, it really takes the results to the next level, because what we get in the listening program is the benefits are long-term. They build session over session as you do the program. You're building the neural pathways and the system is getting stronger. Our neurological system is getting stronger, and we're better able to receive, respond, and use the information that comes to us in our world. With Vital Neuro, we get episodic benefits that are very demonstrable within a single session of significant stress reduction or improved focus within 15 minutes. Then we get the cumulative building like we get with the listening program over time. So it accelerates the outcomes.
So how do most people find out about your work?
A number of platforms. We've been around for a while. So if you search Advanced Brain Technologies, Vital Neuro, the listening program, Alex Doman, my book title, Healing at the Speed of Sound, in Google, you'll find all sorts of references. We also, our products have been used by millions of people worldwide over the years. So most people find us generally from a referral or a word of mouth, or they're searching on the internet, for autism or ADHD or stress reduction, and they come across our programs, with a network of 9,000 practitioners in over 40 countries. The programs are widely used internationally across different institutions, hospitals, schools, clinics, the VA, various hospitals, as well as learning centers and home users. So there's a pretty wide word of mouth given the time that we've been here.
Is there can you give me some sense of the percentage of people that are, as you just mentioned, home users?
Well, all of the programs, Timothy, are designed to be portable. So the environment they can be used in is self-determined. So the same programs we use in a school or a hospital are also available for home, but the majority really lean to home-based use.
So what kinds of symptom patterns or problem targeting areas do you find most responsive to these two techniques?
That's a great question. So if we start with the listening program, where we have the deeper experience to this state, as I mentioned, we initially developed the programs to help children with pediatric special needs. So the populations that we were serving were a very large proportion on the autism spectrum, from mild to severe autism symptoms, children with attention deficit disorder, learning disabilities and dyslexia, individuals with chromosomal anomalies like Down syndrome. And what was interesting, Timothy, is we were training practitioners to work with these populations of individuals. They began using the programs for themselves, and the parents of the children began using the programs for themselves. Then we began to see the stress reduction benefits and the lowering of depression symptoms and reduced anxiety and the improved emotional well-being and the resilience greatly improved. People may not realize how stressful it can be to have a child with special needs, economically, time-wise, emotionally. To serve many of these children becomes the primary role of the parent beyond their career, as it should be. But often it takes a toll. There's great rewards in our children, but there are very trying times with our children. And if we look like the autism population, over 80% of married couples with a child with autism, those marriages end up in divorce, higher than the 50% rate we see across society. So we often forget the family as a whole when we're focused just on that individual. And that actually goes to the first proof of concept research we did with Vital Neuro, looking not at the child as the beneficiary, but the caregiver. So a caregiver study was actually designed by our team along with a neurology group in St. Petersburg, Russia, where for 2 weeks, while children with autism were receiving very intensive neurologically based therapies, including the listening program, the parents received 15 minutes a day of Vital Neuro training. And what we found in the standardized assessments of stress, of anxiety, depression, and sleep, that all 4 areas were greatly disordered at the start of the pilot. And then we saw statistically significant results, even in that very small group, in just 10 to 14 days of training across this population. So these experiences have helped us to see the benefits of these technologies for individuals that have, mental health and stress-related issues, where we started with severe neurological problems. So what we're really seeing are benefits across the spectrum. One of the areas that we're looking at application for Vital Neuro right now is with Olympic athletes to help reduce their stress and, as a result, optimize their performance in their particular sport.
I appreciate all of that. And I just had the thought as you were talking that in your book, Healing at the Speed of Sound, well, one thing I want to mention about the book is that it's wonderful, even though, you were kind enough to send me a paperback copy. It has these wonderful little notations with an eyeball or an ear, and then you can get on your mobile device or on the internet and listen to a clip or watch a video. It's beautifully done. I imagine it would be, in a really connected environment, to have a digital version of this book would be even easier. Yeah. But it enriched my experience of working with the book. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you so much.
The thing that came to me is we began talking about almost at a clinical level for people with problems. And I thought, one of my experiences of reading your book was that it's an education in how I can pay attention to sound in my everyday life and actually look at a diet, if you will, or creating a sound environment in a more general sense, could you say something about that for our audience?
Absolutely, and that's really what Healing at the Speed of Sound is all about. You know, when I wrote the book with my dear late friend Don Campbell, who wrote The Mozart Effect, which popularized the idea of music for health and well-being and education, our goal was to help educate everybody on the benefits of sound in our life and also the dangers of noise within our life. You know, we are surrounded by sound 24/7, 365. We weren't born with earlids. Sound is pervasive and it's constantly coming into our nervous system through our ears and also vibrationally through our body. So our auditory sense, which is one of the first to develop in utero and is one of our early forms of learning as a fetus, you know, after 16 to 20 weeks of gestation, we're taking in and processing sound and creating a foundation in our neuro audiological system that's going to form the basis of our interaction with sound throughout our lifetime. And what do I mean by our interaction with sound? Our ability to understand language and to express language, both written and verbal, to understand dangers of sound in our environment, to appreciate the sounds of nature and to be bathed in the beautiful benefits of nature sounds, and to engage and listen and express ourselves musically. You know, sound is a very rich tapestry of sensory information for our nervous system. And because we don't see it, I think we don't often think about it in our lives because it doesn't have this visual presence within us. So the idea behind Healing at the Speed of Sound was to help us understand how we can use sound from in utero to end of life, how we can use sound from morning to night, and how we use sound in different environments, in the classroom, in the workplace, during our commute, during family time, to help the aging, to help in the dying process, to ease that transition from this life to the next. So it's really a practical guide of research-based information, and then tools and tips to help us, you know, use sound differently in our life. And, you know, kind of one example, each morning there's something that we all do. We all wake up at some time, and we have different ways that we wake up. The way the brain was designed is that the light was designed to activate an area in the brain through the retina to tell us to rise for the day. And when the sun set and when we moved into more complete darkness, that was a trigger to the brain to go to sleep. So that's what sets our circadian rhythm, our 24-hour body clock. But many of our body clocks are out of sync for a number of environmental reasons, including the stressors in our lives. So we have to use aids to wake up. So rather than waking with the sunrise and the sounds of birds chirping, some people need to startle themselves with an alarm clock. Well, based on the alarm clock that we're using, people may not recognize that our cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone, are highest when we wake in the morning. So if we take these elevated cortisol levels and then add in a buzzing alarm clock, what have we done to set the tone for our day? We've set stress as a tone for our day. So why not wake to the sound of recorded bird sounds or lovely music or something that's very nurturing, and it completely changes our day before we're even out of bed. Or more ideally, we wake with the sunrise because we've trained our circadian cycle to be able to do that.
Well, and one of the things that struck me as I was reading your book is that when I was many years ago in school, they talked to us about how nerves in the body are the only things that don't regrow and heal. And, 5 or 6 years later, they said, oh, we were wrong about that. But if you have damage to the nerves in your brain, they can't heal, and it's irreparable. And then 5 or 6 years later, they said, oh, we were wrong about that. And now they're saying there's a tremendous amount of what they call neuroplasticity, or the ability for the brain to learn and grow all through our lives. And I was thinking about that as I was reading your book, Healing Through the Speed of Sound, as you recommend that people get proactive and conscious about what they're putting into their sound environment throughout the day. And I myself understand the value of turning off the news, turning off the talk radio and the constant sports with all of the advertisements, and finding a playlist that either, picks my mood up and gets me ready for the day, or helps me calm down at the end of the day, in a very simplistic approach to what your book guides me into a much more informed and structured system that I can create for myself. So it's not just creating a nice sound, it's actually having an impact on how my mind and body is going to interact with whatever else I have to interact with in the day.
I mean, what you're talking about, Timothy, is the process of entrainment. And this concept of entrainment is that the external rhythms in our life, they superimpose and entrain the internal rhythms within our body and our brain. So what's happening in our external environment is affecting our internal environment. And I think we all recognize that, but what we may not recognize is how powerful sound of music is as an entrainment device, right? So if we, in the book, Healing at the Speed of Sound, we break this down into gears. First gear, second gear, third gear. So first gear, we call low and slow. So these are lower frequency sounds, more bass toned music, and that music gets slower tempos, generally under 60 beats per minute, like you'd listen to during a massage. That type of music, which is very similar to what we're using in Vital Neuro, by the way, for our relaxation protocols, entrains the body to slower, deeper, more relaxed states when we need to be calm and centered. If we go to second gear, that second gear is the mid-range of frequencies. They have more energy. They are at faster tempos, generally 60 to 90 beats per minute, and they really support calm focus and flow and are great to use during the workday when we really need to get into the zone and focus on what we're doing. And then we have third gear, where we really shift up to faster tempos, 90 to 150 beats per minute. We move out of instrumental music and into maybe music with lyrics. It could be rock, it could be pop music, it could be classical, it could be any genre, but it has a lot more energy in it. And you'll find that, I'm sure, Timothy, if you broke down your playlists, that you would find you could categorize zone 1 or gear 1, 2, and 3, and match those to your daily activities, and that you're automatically doing that. You've found what works for you, and that's really true of most people with their personal playlists. Just in the book, we give a little more structure as to how to do that.
Well, and I like the way the book is so clear in its presentation. You don't have to be an expert in anything to start conceptualizing and then actually doing a little bit of an improvement in the soundscape, sound environment that you're living in.
Well, and one of the pieces we haven't touched on, which is really, truly important, is the impact of noise on our nervous system and our stress. So while the right sound in music can be incredibly beneficial, there is also an importance to quiet. I don't say silence, because achieving true silence is very difficult to do in this world, but we need periods of space with quiet where we're not processing sound or any sensory stimulus, that we're just with ourselves, and to be conscious of the noise in our environment. And if we think of noise, noise is the unwanted sound that makes us feel stressed, uncomfortable, or sometimes even unsafe. And what we may not recognize is that there are noises in our environment that are pervasive, that we're not attentive to, that are elevating our stress levels, right? So even just the sound of an HVAC system in a house running, the sound of traffic noise in our environment. And in fact, it was unfortunate, this came out after the book was published, but the World Health Organization published a massive health research initiative, which looked at the impact of noise on health in the European Union. And WHO identified is that the second leading cause of environmental ill health in Europe was traffic noise. And that traffic noise in some instances created cardiac arrest. So people can die from noise exposure, even though that direct link isn't made. The cumulative effect on noise on our stress level day in and day out can, in the worst case scenario, end our life. So we need to be aware of the environment that our pregnant mothers are in when they're carrying their unborn child, and the noise exposure and the impact of stress on the mother, and that's transferred to the fetus. You know, are our children in loud, noisy environments? What's the noise like levels in our classrooms, in our workplace, during our commute? I think it's one of the reasons we see so many people shut off and wear headphones, because they're extracting the noise from the environment and replacing it with something hopefully more positive that gives them that shield of protection while they hopefully are nourishing themselves with something very positive. But we're going to that naturally because I think we're recognizing those impacts. But it's important to recognize music and sound can be very beneficial, noise can be harmful, and we need quiet and space in between both.
As you were talking about that, it reminds me that somewhere, I believe it's in your book, you talk about the bone conducting headphones.
Mm.
Can you say a little bit about that, the pros and cons?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Advanced Brain Technologies, we developed a audio system specifically for the listening program, which is called Waves. And the Waves system is a very high quality headset. And then in the headband of the headset is a vibrational unit, which is called a transducer. And there's a headphone amplifier that attaches to that, and that plugs in either to an iPod or your phone or your computer, whatever your sound source is for the listening program. And rather than just experiencing the music through the headphones, which is very rich, very full in a surround sound simulated mode, you feel the vibration of the sound through your body. Now, we hear as living beings through two natural sound pathways, the bone conduction pathway and the air conduction pathway. We tend to think about the air conduction pathway only of sound coming through the ears, but sound also travels through our entire body from our environment. And when we were in utero and we were first learning about sound, we were in a fluid-filled world. So our earliest learning with sound, including listening to the sound of our mother and our external world, was entirely through bone conduction. And anyone that has swum underwater and heard voices in a swimming pool has had that experience. You know, one exercise we can do is if we cover our ears and we hum for a moment and then uncover our ears and keep humming, you'll notice a difference in the sound level and the sound quality between covered and uncovered. And what we'll notice with our ears covered, the sound seems louder and more resonant and clearer. That's because that is how we perceive our own voice in daily life. So Timothy, as I'm speaking to you, I'm really hearing myself primarily through bone conduction within my body. That's my internal listening sense. I tune into what's happening in our environment through air conduction, which is external. So the reason why we developed a combined air and bone conduction technology for the listening program is to train internal listening to connect to self and external listening to connect to our environment and begin to improve the dialogue and the relationship between the two. Then there are also certain applications in which bone conduction can be helpful, including for those that are hard of hearing, individuals that have had serious chronic ear infections over time, and there's been a compromise to the internal system. But most importantly, what we find is that bone conduction provides emotional grounding. and it allows us again to access that parasympathetic nervous system. We get more vagal nerve stimulation happening through bone conduction than air conduction only. So it allows us to get centered, be grounded, and be at home, if you will. So when we combine those modalities, we get a deeper, richer benefit as we do a program like the listening program.
And you just dropped in the vagal nerve reference there. The short version for the non-scientist, it's this major nerve that goes through the face and down the neck and into the stomach. So it really connects my gut sensations with the mirror neurons in my brain and the eyeballs. And so it's the kind of thing that if somebody starts singing the Star Spangled Banner and I tear up, or I feel it tingling through me, or if I see somebody on the television or in a movie and they're crying and tears come to my eyes right away, that's all vagal nerve response. This is this very deep internal connection from head to heart to gut.
Yeah, it's what allows, I mean, it's really the communication pathway is what you're describing. And that, you know, that vagus nerve, which is our 10th cranial nerve, connects to every major organ in our body with the exception of the spleen. So it is that gut-brain connection, connects that enteric brain, which is called the gut brain, which has over 100 million neurons in and of itself, to this brain in our head that we think of as our brain, and it creates that dialogue. But there's a very crucial symbiotic relationship between the vagus nerve and connection to our autonomic nervous system. So it's access to the autonomic nervous system where we have our sympathetic fight response and flight to rest and digest and recovery in parasympathetic, allowing us to access a homeostatic state more readily through that pathway.
Well, thanks for that clarification. I just looked at the clock and realized we're getting near time here. I want to make sure that you have time to think about what have we not asked you about that you'd really like our audience to hear about?
I think it's the why. Why do we do the work that we do as a family for 75 years now in 3 generations? Why is our team at Advanced Brain Technologies and at Vital Neuro doing what we're doing in the world? And the why is this. We live on an amazing planet, in an incredible universe with infinite potential as a society and as individuals. And as I'm looking at the world today, the world as it is not the world that I want my children and my future grandchildren to live in. It's a place of stress and of chaos that is counterbalanced by these incredible movements and opportunity. And I truly believe we can't solve the great problems that we're faced with as a global society with the level of function that we are all operating at today. So our goal, our mission is to optimize people's performance in life so that we can make better decisions for the planet and for society and for our families and for ourselves. And that with the growing epidemic of mental health issues, I'm candidly very, very concerned, if not worried, about the future state of society unless we shift people out of their fight or flight response into a state of homeostasis so that we can make better decisions about our lives and for our world. So that's our why. You know, we're on a mission to impact billions of people. It's a lofty mission, but it's what we're here to do. And as a family for 75 years, this has been our commitment, and our global teams amidst our organizations and our partner organizations like Powerful You, those that we're working with at Bruca Group and Optimal Being, share this vision and this drive to make massive dramatic change. So in answer to your question, that's our why, Timothy.
Well, I thank you for that and for being here. I would like to have you just summarize if you had a preferred way for people to reach out to you through a website, Facebook. How do you prefer that people access more information about these programs?
Yeah, so I make myself very accessible. Anyone's welcome to contact me at any time. So I have a personal website, which is alexdoman.com, ALEXDOMAN.com, and there's a contact form you can reach me. I'm on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, generally at the handle @AlexDoman. Or you can contact Vital Neuro through vitalneuro.com or Advanced Brain Technologies at advancedbrain.com. Those organizations are also on social media. So whatever is convenient for you, reach out and engage, and we'll help and support you in any way we can.
And is there a, for an individual who might hear this and want to explore this, is there a price point that you can give them for looking at either the listening program or the Vital Neuro?
Yeah, absolutely. So the listening program is a very wide range of options that are available, but the lowest cost of entry is a monthly subscription of $34.95 per month and an investment in a pair of headphones and working with a practitioner. So somebody for less than a few $100s with practitioner, with equipment, and a monthly subscription to the listening program can get started right away. And with Vital Neuro, we also have worked to make that very accessible. And when that comes to commercial market later this year, we've got a target price of $350 for the Vital One Smart headphone and a $30 a month subscription for that.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's a delight to learn more about you, and thanks for the book, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I look forward to our next contact.
I do too, Timothy. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to have to re-listen to that one several times to get down everything Alex was talking about. One of the things that impressed me the most was that his work is so researched and verified at so many levels. So with that level of investment in research, I fully expected the cost of his programs to be much, much more than they are. I, for one, am looking forward to starting the listening process. The other thing that really impressed me when I was reading his book is how he's been weaving these ideas about sound health into his personal life and his family life. And there's even a segment in the book where they talk about how he and his wife used sound from the beginning of their pregnancy with the child they had together, and then moved that into the delivery room. And this, in spite of the fact that they chose a hospital where natural childbirth was a priority, the people working in the hospital hadn't heard about the importance of sound in the environment. So I hope you enjoyed the book as much as I did, and I hope you join us again for the next segment of On Your Mind, presented by Journey's Dream. Thanks for being here.
You've been listening to the On Your Mind podcast, offered by Journey's Dream, where we support people through mental health challenges to a place of true and lasting well-being. If you love our show, we invite you to visit onyourmindpodcast.org to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our helpful resources. Thank you for listening.